Sometimes people think it's over, but it's not necessarily over. If two people are willing to understand the true purpose of relationship, which is about the evolution of your soul together. I commit to serving you. I commit to serving you. If you understand that, then you understand that shit's gonna get triggered. And a lot of times when stuff comes up, people are like, I'm out, bye. But when stuff comes up, if you understand the real purpose of relationship, which is evolution, then relationship can be a profound healing container and yoga for the both of you to work through stuff together. So long as you both commit to serving each other's souls, even when some challenging stuff is there, you have a relationship and you can continue. But when someone is like, I'm no longer committed to serving your soul, that might be a sign that your relationship is over.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Boujee Best Friend Podcast. Do I have an episode for you today? I'm literally still in awe. This conversation touched me on a spiritual level. I had the pleasure of interviewing Kute Blackson. Kute is a beloved inspirational speaker and a transformational teacher. He's just incredible. Let's start with that. Kute is the author of the national best-selling book, You Are the One, as well as his newest book, The Magic of Surrender. He's widely considered the next generation leader in the field of personal development and has been called by the Inc. magazine the mindfulness guru billionaires go to for advice. I absolutely love that. This episode is going to bring you on a whole new level of your spiritual awakening, so you better buckle up. Side note, we have a little giveaway at the end of the episode, so make sure to listen all the way till the end. Before we get into the episode, I'm going to read a review from one of you Boujee besties that I absolutely adore. Username is The Petite Palette. Subject goes, something for everyone. I'm a single/divorced mom of two living in New York City. My oldest is on the autism spectrum, and the single/special needs mom is one of the most isolating and constant self-doubt. I've tried dating, but I've fallen victim to the gaslighting and other toxic behaviors that are prevalent in this city. The Coco community makes me feel like my old self before life happened. I look forward to Coco's latest episodes every Monday. She's the friend we all need. Mary. I could cry, but I won't. Okay, let's just get into the episode. Kute, welcome to Boujee Best Friend Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. I've been going through your work. I saw you have a bunch of fun, not even fun, a bunch of amazing, deep things that you're doing right now. And I'm very excited to chat about all of those on my show.
Cool. Thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay. I would love to start with you. Tell me your story.
Oh, my story. We could be here for like 17 podcast episodes, but I'll do my best to give you the Cliff Notes version. Look, I was born in Ghana, West Africa, and my father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. I live in the US, partly Mexico, so I feel like I'm a citizen of the world from everywhere and nowhere, which has been a blessing. As a child, I often felt like I didn't have a home, and it was challenging. I didn't feel like I identified with anything or any location. And so I grew to find it a real blessing because it gave me the ability to connect with all people as souls rather than just nationalities. And so as a kid, I was a very empathetic kid. I felt people's pain very deeply. And there was a part of me that always wanted to alleviate suffering in some way. I didn't know what that would look like, but I just felt people, and that was very intense. And so some would say I had a bit of an unusual childhood, which I think set the foundation for what I'm doing now and why and how I'm doing things now. But for me, I thought my childhood was quite normal. I thought everyone had my childhood until I found out maybe it was a bit different. In that, like my first memories as a kid was, I remember being a chubby kid lost in the crowd and seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the sand that this man walks on, like the gravel, and wipes it on her face and stands up. Call it a miracle. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see, deaf people hear. You know, the same man whose sand she picked up would look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, why are you in this wheelchair? You're not sick, stand up. And he would touch them and they would stand up. And somebody would come in with crutches and they hadn't walked in 5 years. And he would say, throw your crutches away. And he would touch them and they would be healed. And so this was my father. And he was considered like the miracle man of Africa, and a very mystical, spiritual, metaphysical, teacher and minister in his own right. He built 300 churches in Ghana, had hundreds of thousands of followers, a huge church in London, 5,000 people. And so I grew up in this kind of tradition of like anything was possible and spirituality. And my mother was Buddhist, so that was an interesting combination. Yeah, really interesting combination. And so when I was 8, my speaking career began when I was age 8. I was basically thrown in the audience. Age 8.
Wow.
I was, it sounds fancy, but I was more interested in playing soccer, and I was more interested in soccer growing up in London and wanted to be a soccer player. But I would break things in my father's church, so they literally stuck me on the front row and said, sit, and put 2 basically like bodyguard type people next to me. And one Sunday, and I'm asleep in church. And one Sunday, my father says, my son's going to speak today. And I remember running up on stage, and I don't know what happened. I didn't practice, and words started to come out of my mouth, and people were moved. And that began my relationship with speaking, and something opened up inside of me. And so when I was 14, I was ordained as a minister. And that was another pivotal moment in my life, because all of a sudden I'm this kid, and I was very curious about life and tried to understand who am I and what's the purpose of life and where do we come from, where are we going, and like why are we here? And yet my father just suddenly announced one Sunday, my son is taking over my ministry. He is my successor. And I'm thinking to myself, no one freaking spoke to me about this.
How old were you then? Was that
14,
still in the age? Okay,
14.
14, yes.
And so, I'm a kid. And yet I felt very tapped in, but I'm still 14. And I knew in that moment that this was not my path. I knew that this was not, I just had this knowing that like this feels off. This is not my purpose. But I think like many of us, I was too afraid to speak my truth. My fear was, if I dared to be who I am, if I dared to speak my truth, if I dared to tell my father, this is not what I want to do, then I would lose his love. I would be outcast. I would be alone. I'd be abandoned. And so I said nothing. And I tried to rationalize and fit myself into the idea of what I thought people wanted me to be and what my father wanted me to be. But I think about 4 years later, I was about 17, 18, I had some decisions to make. I felt such a strong, this is another moment where my life shifted. I felt such a strong, soul calling. And I tell people, like, when your soul calls you, you better listen to your soul, because your soul has an intelligence. And often what your soul guides you to do won't always make sense to your logic, won't always make sense to your mind, and may sometimes be inconvenient. Your soul doesn't care about convenience. It just cares about evolution and growth. And my soul was calling me to come to America, specifically Southern California, because all of the self-help authors, so I would sneak into my father's office, and on his bookshelf were literally 1,000 self-help books. So as a kid, from age 8 to 18, I became very obsessed with trying to read all of these spiritual books, from the Eastern mystics of like Osho and Krishnamurti to Uspensky from the West, to Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Louise Hay. So for me, all of the modern day teachers lived in LA. They lived in San Diego. So for me, this was like the Mecca. And so I wanted to come to the US to go into this field. I had visions of writing books and speaking to people. And my soul said, go to America. And I knew in that moment, it was like a no shit moment, because I knew that I had no choice. I felt like it was not an option, but I knew what that would mean for my life, that I would have to face my father, that I would have to maybe risk a relationship with my father and follow this completely unknown path that I had no idea where it was going to leave me, completely terrified, but I knew that something was calling me that was bigger than myself. And yet I looked into my future and I saw that I could follow the expected path and take over and be successful and follow in my father's footsteps and make everyone happy. But if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my own integrity, what kind of success is that? Like, you can't be truly fulfilled being someone that you're not. You can't be truly happy living someone else's life. And I saw that if I lie to myself now to get love, validation, and approval, I will have to lie to myself for the rest of my life. And that felt like a soul suicide. And so I took the pill and jumped off the cliff and decided that I would confront my father, which was terrifying and scary. And I had to grieve even before the loss of relationship with my father. And
let me just stop you right here. How did you prepare for that conversation?
Well, it was about 4 years of questioning, rationalization, worst case scenarios, crying, grieving, terrified. I'm 15. I freaking found a psychic. I was so scared. I found a psychic, a 15-year-old kid in the church, and I go to a psychic to try and get some guidance. Like, I'm a minister. Like, what do I do? I'm going to a freaking psychic, and I'm not supposed to go to a psychic. But I was
kind of against it, right?
Yeah, I was that desperate to find answers, and so honestly, I cried for a few years because I had to grieve the loss. I had to make peace with the fact I might not have a relationship with my father. And when I fully grieved it, it was still painful. But once I grieved it and I made peace with the possibility of that, I spoke to my mother. And I told my mother also about my decision. My mother, being this amazing woman, said, I back you up and I support you no matter what. I love you. And I think that also pushed me over the edge. And I'll never forget the day where I tiptoed up the steps to my father's bedroom where he was, and he was lying on the bed, and I'm shaking, and
sweats, palms, sweating everywhere.
Sweating, hypervent. People think you have to get rid of fear. I was terrified. And so I just had to acknowledge the truth, which was, this is what I have to do. And there was no real preparation, because you can't necessarily prepare for something that's so scary other than throw yourself off of the cliff and just pray. And I prayed and I prayed and I asked for God's grace. I'm like, God, if this is true, what I feel, I need you, So there was a lot of praying, and I had the conversation. And long story short, my father said, are you sure? I said, I'm not taking over. He said, are you sure? I said, yes. He said, are you sure? I said, yes. And we didn't speak from that moment for 2 years.
Wow.
No communication. I mean, he traveled, so he was gone a lot, but that was painful because I thought he would scream and yell. At least there'd be some communication, but we didn't speak for 2 years. And I remember being in such a deep, people think that when you follow your purpose, it's easy. When you follow your purpose, all the
hard.
Angels come out and everything flows. The self-help books make it sound like the effortless synchronicity of the universe. Sometimes when you face your freaking purpose and you go down that path, that's when the challenges and that's when the tests truly arrive to test you, to also it's like the gymnasium, to prepare you so that you can develop the mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological muscle for, let's say, soul force to be able to fulfill the vision. And so I was in this place where I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. No college education, no money, no support from my father, no support from anybody, but I felt this calling. And so I said a prayer. I said, God, if what I feel is right, I need the support of the universe now. If this is true, I need a sign. And days later, someone hands me a magazine called The Economist. Sometimes we ask for a sign, but we're not always paying attention because we think that the sign is going to be this huge thing. And someone hands me the magazine called The Economist, and I felt like, this is weird. This is a clue from the universe. I look at the back and I'm flipping through the magazine, and I see that the American government is giving away 55,000 green cards in the green card lottery, the DV1 green card lottery.
I'm an immigrant myself, so I know all about them.
and everything in my, it literally all the cells in my body, the hairs on my skin just stood up, and I thought, I'm going to win this. I just felt like I'm going to win this thing. And so I entered it. And I was visualizing and meditating and doing my affirmations. I was told that unless I heard by September the 18th, then just move on with your life. And September the 18th, I'm running to the mailbox every day, right, for 3 months. Nothing. September the 18th rolls around. Nothing. Now I'm pissed off at God. Now I'm pissed off at the universe.
Like, you gave me the sign.
You gave me the sign. You gave me the vision. You dropped me in the middle of the ocean, and you just leave me there. Like, universe, like everything I've read, 800 books say, just leap and the net will appear. You know, believe it and you can achieve it. Now I'm just dying. And I said to my mother, I'm going to go to America without a green card because I don't have one. Yes, it's illegal, and I'm not coming back because I so believe. I packed my bags that night. That night, we got a phone call. This was the 19th from the law firm I applied through in Washington, D.C. My mother picks up. She hands me the phone. The guy on the other line says, "Is this Mr. Blackson?" I said, "Yes." I'll never forget his voice. He goes, "I can't believe it, but we just got the letter today that you've won a green card." And I'm jumping around, so excited, hugging my mom in the middle of the night because of the time difference. And then I heard this voice that said, "Why do you seem so surprised? Did you not believe? You know, did you lose trust?" And that's when I really had this profound sense that there was something, an intelligence, you know, an energy, something that is guiding my life, has been guiding my life. And so that was a really profound moment. And that's what enabled me to come to the US, 2 suitcases, $800, knew no one in the country. And I went and found some of the mentors and authors I'd read about, studied with some of them, stayed here for a couple of years, and then reached another point where I was tired of reading. You know, I wanted to do this TV show once I came to the US. I had the opportunity to do this show, long story short, but I turned it down. And I went into a funk. And I started to travel the world in search of answers. I ended up in Israel, studying with some rabbis, ended up in Thailand, ended up walking the Camino in northern Spain, shaving my head, walked the Camino. I ended up in India. And for me, it was spending about 4 to 5 months in India, maybe about 5 months in India, that really cracked me open to a deeper sense of my true purpose and who I am. And so much happened for me in that first year in India that I came back. That's when I came back to the US, and I was broke up with my girlfriend, was homeless. I mean, nothing.
And you were 15 at the time. I mean,
no,
16, something like that?
I left the US at 18.
Okay.
And so I was, by the time I went to India, I was about 22-ish in that zone. And I had nothing. But when I came back from India, I felt so at peace, you know, so I felt so free. But there was no reason. I barely had any money, had nowhere to stay, sleeping on the couches of friends. But I felt such a sense of peace. And people started coming up to me and saying, like, why do you seem so happy? Like, why do you seem so peaceful? And I started talking to people. And before you know it, I had my first coaching client. And that just grew slowly and evolved. And then I went through another epiphany and I began working with people over the course of years, I developed a methodology of working with people that I called uncoaching. And people's lives started to like radically transform in deep ways. And I had people coming to me from all over the world to work with me one-on-one. And that just evolved. So I just started. This is pre-social media and pre-Facebook and pre-Instagram. You know, I just started working with people one-on-one, first out of the pure desire of just helping people experience freedom, you know, and people came. And then that just grew into small groups and large groups and larger groups and 2 books. And, you know, here we are. That's the short version.
Wow. Okay. There's so many things that you said that, first of all, I can relate to because I am from Croatia originally.
Wow. I love Croatia.
Yeah. You've been?
Split.
It's so funny. I just posted a video about Split today. I came here when I was 22.
Wow.
On my own. Wow. With 2 suitcases and $1,000.
Wow.
So we have something very similar. And when you were speaking about your father and your relationship with him when you decided to do this, I remember when I decided, because I came here on an exchange program with my school and I'm still here on a work visa. So I know the struggles of, you know, other immigrants going through the same thing. And I remember how in the very beginning, I made a decision And I was like, I need to stay here. I felt that similar calling that you felt. It was like, I had nightmares of going back to Croatia and not being able to move to the U. Like, I just knew that this is where I belong. And when I told my parents my decision, I feel like I blocked that time of my life a little bit because I don't even remember speaking to them. I just decided like, this is what I'm doing. And they were obviously constantly telling me, just come back home, do this. And then later you can do, I just knew that I had to stay here. And when you were speaking about purpose, and people usually think that life, when you discover your purpose, everything is just going to be peachy smooth. Yeah. But life is constantly testing you to kind of see if you're serious about it.
Yes.
And I feel like finally what I'm doing today and helping women with my content and having people like you on the podcast and kind of, just helping people in general, that is my purpose. But every day I'm tested. Every day, I have a technical difficulty on my podcast that I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. But I will never give up because I feel such a sense of peace. It's a beautiful thing. So you were living in California, right?
Yes, moved to Los Angeles straight away.
And where do you live now?
Back in Los Angeles. I'm in LA. Yeah.
Okay.
Last few years, I ended up moving. I had a house in Phoenix, so I was in Phoenix during 2020 and COVID. Moved to Miami, and I'm back in LA. So,
how did you like Miami? I'm in Miami right now.
I love Miami. Honestly, I thought I was going to be in Miami for the next 20 years, and I think the vibe is obviously you find whatever you focus on in Miami.
Yeah,
it can be whatever you. If you're in your ego and you stay on the surface, and that's where you hang out, then you're gonna kind of experience Miami in that way. And yet, Miami for me was beautiful and stunningly gorgeous, and it had a resonance and a vibe and a pulse. And I think it's going to be a city of the next 20 years. But somehow the universe guided me back to LA, and this is where I'm at for now.
You mentioned something interesting, afraid to speak your truth.
Yes.
Why do you think that people are afraid to speak their truth?
I think for a few reasons, but I think at the core, we're afraid to speak our truth because there is something inside of us as human beings. The sense of like, if you know who I really am, you won't love me. And so the fear of really speaking our truth and being who we truly are, that may not always go over very well with those in our lives. So the fear of losing love, the fear of losing validation, the fear of losing connection, the fear of losing people and loss often stops us from speaking our truth. The fear of judgment, the fear of being judged. And so in so many ways, from childhood, we've been conditioned and we learn to contort ourselves to be a certain way. Who do I need to be in order to get mom to love me? Who do I need to be in order to get dad to love me? Or if I'm quiet, if I don't say that, if I say this, if I say that, if I'm this way, if I'm that way. And so we've been conditioned from childhood and we've learned unconsciously to be who we think we need to be in order to get love, validation, and approval. And so I think not speaking our truth is limiting, but underlying that is also a positive intention. And the intention is we're trying to get love, validation, acceptance, right? Unconditional loving from someone outside of ourselves. And so I think that's a core thing, the seeking of love and validation. And the challenge is when we don't speak our truth, we end up betraying ourselves. When we don't speak our truth, we end up denying and suppressing ourselves. And that's what makes us sick. That's what makes us frustrated. That's what makes us angry inside. And when we don't honor ourselves, what we will tend to do is manifest and attract people into our lives that don't accept us. Because we're not accepting our truth. We'll attract people into our lives that betray us or mirror that betrayal that we are doing to ourselves to us in our lives. And so, it can be scary to speak our truth. But in many ways, many of us, we're not necessarily acknowledging the truth to ourselves about who we are. Forget speaking our truth to someone else. You can't speak your truth to someone else if you don't speak your truth to yourself. And I think one of the things that stops us from being truly fulfilled, truly alive, truly happy, truly just at peace is we're constantly lying to ourselves about who we are, about what we feel, about what we want. We stay in relationships that we know are not particularly aligned because we're afraid. We work jobs that we know not really a true expression of our purpose out of fear. We say yes when we mean no. And so in order to speak our truth to someone else, I think we have to start speaking our truth to ourselves. And I think where we can start is maybe just start with the question, what lies am I telling myself? Just to be able to get really real with ourselves. What lies am I telling myself? And to me, there is no transformation. There is no truly happy life without telling ourselves the truth. Sometimes we're afraid to tell the truth because we're afraid of the consequences. So I just tell people, take the pressure off of yourself of having to even take action. Like, oh, if I tell the truth about like my relationship, that might mean I have to get a divorce. And that might mean I have to leave my job if I acknowledge I'm not truly happy in my job. And so that's when sort of the ego kicks in and creates this kind of, we play a game of confusion. I don't really know what my truth is. I don't really know what my purpose is. I'm not really sure if this is right for me, when we know, deep down we know. So if we can take the pressure off of ourselves, like you don't have to take action, but just acknowledge the truth. Okay, I'm not in love anymore. Oh, that's scary. And feel what comes up. I hate my job. It's scary to acknowledge that because like, now what? You don't have to take action. You don't have to leave. Take the pressure off, but just get into relationship with the truth of what you feel, because then underneath that will be a lot of emotions and feelings that can begin marinating and begin a process inside. But in order to speak our truth to someone, we have to speak our truth to ourselves. And I think that's where it starts.
You mentioned something that we are afraid to speak our truth because we're afraid of other people and what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And I remember, I mean, COVID was difficult for everyone, but I had other personal situations in my life that I was completely lost. I had no idea what was going on in my life. I was just totally shattered. And I went to speak to an astrologist or something like that.
Cool.
I was like, I need to just like give me some signs from the universe. And she told me, and this is the first time that I'm speaking about this on my podcast, which is very interesting. She told me that my mission, aka purpose in life, is to help people. And that was let's say 4 years ago. I didn't have this platform. I didn't have my content the way I have. Like I give dating advice mostly and stuff like that. And when she told me, I was like, that's it. That's my mission in life, is to help people. Can I get something different? Can I get something more like interesting? But now when I'm doing what I'm doing, and when people are asking me like, how do you have the patience to talk to all these? How do you do this? How do you do that? I'm like, I just love it so much. And it is difficult at times, but you said also people are staying in relationships. They don't want to stay. And I was that girl who was so afraid to leave a situation that was hurting me, to leave something that, because I was just afraid to be on my own.
Yeah.
So for somebody listening right now, and they're in a situation when they are in a relationship and they're just deeply unhappy, maybe they're even married, they have kids, but they just know this is not what they deserve. Like this is not what they want to have till the rest of your life. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, it's scary. I think it's important to first acknowledge the fear and not suppress it and not deny it, because one way we tend to avoid is we distract ourselves. We drink it away, smoke it away, drug it away, shop it away, social media it away, just so we don't feel what we really feel inside. And that just keeps us stuck in the cycle and the loop. And so I would say the first step is remove the distractions and just acknowledge the fear. And then acknowledge the truth. It always starts with the truth. Like, I'm terrified, I'm scared, but I'm not happy. This is not working. Like nothing can change until you really acknowledge where you are. I'm not happy in this relationship. It's scary. I'm crying. But if you can just get to the truth, that gets you into relationship with what is, with reality. And then you can begin to shift and change reality. You can't change reality if you're in denial. Like, well, what we often do is we negotiate. Well, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe he'll change. Maybe if I change, they'll change. And so we end up freaking negotiating 20 years of our life in a relationship that we know deep down is not really working. And then we break up. And here's what happens. Then we break up. Then we speak to our best friend. Like, I broke up. Yeah. Sorry. No, I knew it wasn't going to work. We deep down, we know. When did you know?
Exactly.
When I first met the guy. When I first met the person, we had this sense, but we denied it. And so I think we have to start with the truth. and just acknowledge the truth. You can't, in order to change something, you have to acknowledge it and you have to come into acceptance of it. Like, this is what it is. This is who they are. And I tell people, if you're in a relationship, a couple of things I'll say. Do not fall in love with someone's potential, because that's when we constantly start negotiating away. Well, if I change, they'll change. If I cleanse my karma, maybe they'll shit. Like, you have to look at who someone is right now, exactly as they are, and ask yourself, if they never change, that doesn't mean we won't evolve. That doesn't mean, but if they fundamentally don't change, am I okay? Am I good? If you can't say, yeah, if they don't change, it's okay, then you may be setting yourself up for pain. Because many times we go into relationships with a desire to change someone and we end up changing ourselves in order to try to change the person, and we end up miserable. So you have to accept who someone is, not fall in love with their potential. Because if you're in relationship with their potential, you're not in relationship really with who they are right now. You're in relationship with a fantasy inside of your mind rather than what is. And that will create suffering when that person doesn't fulfill or live into the potential that you're seeing. And it's okay to, I tell my women friends, it's okay to see who a man is. It's okay to see his greatness. It's okay to see the possibility. It's beautiful to see the greatness in him. It's fine. If you see where he is, and you're at peace with that, then any change is a bonus. But also, he or she has to be willing to see what you see and be willing to do the mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological, therapeutic work in the real world to affect those changes so that they can step into the potential that you're seeing. And so I think this is why accepting where someone is step one. And if you come to a place, sometimes we're afraid to accept where someone is because we know, if I accept where Coco is, if I accept who Kute is, what they are doesn't work for me. The reality, if I accept, I know that what they are right now just doesn't work. And because we're resisting that, we don't want to accept. But if you come into acceptance and you're like, it doesn't work, then you have to be willing to allow yourself to grieve. I think the willingness to grieve is the key to letting go as well. Many times we don't fully accept, so then we don't fully allow ourselves to grieve fully, which is a next step. There's acceptance and the next step is grieving. And when we don't allow ourselves to accept, we can't allow ourselves to grieve. We don't allow ourselves to grieve the relationship, we'll often stay holding on. But when we start to allow ourselves to grieve a relationship, that is the beginning of letting go. Many times we don't allow ourselves to grieve as a kind of form of denial to hold on to what was. So allow yourself to grieve the relationship. Allow yourself to grieve it, because that will start a process of letting go. I tell people that relationship, if you're in one, if you're not in one, relationship, you attract to you a person that is a mirror manifestation of yourself. Everybody you attract to you, that person that is in your life, is a mirror manifestation of yourself, a mirror manifestation of your consciousness reflecting to you parts of yourself that you most need to heal, make peace with, embrace, integrate, love, let go of. So on some level, they're a mirror. On some level, there is no relationship out there. You're in relationship with an aspect or aspects of yourself that gets projected out there. And as a result, that energy is what draws them to you to show you where you're at and who you are and the parts of yourself that you need to make peace with. So if you look at the person you're with right now, ask yourself, am I good with that? If you look at what you're attracting, ask yourself, am I okay? What do I see? Do I like what I see? And so what we often do in relationships is, I don't like what I see, I'm just going to leave the relationship. I'm not saying don't leave the relationship if you know for sure that it's no longer aligned, it's no longer working, you've done everything you can, and you've taken responsibility, and you've tried, and you've given 100% effort. But what I will say is, before you leave, ask yourself, what are they mirrored to me about myself? Ask yourself, Why did my soul attract this person? Because we attract people into our lives because at a particular moment we are a vibrational match. And there's certain lessons that your soul and their soul have to work out together. Relationship is a classroom. And so to me, the purpose of relationship isn't just going to the movies, having great sex, going on vacation, getting each other flowers. The purpose of relationship on that spiritual level is evolution. The degree to which you together learn the lessons for why you came together so that you can grow and evolve and realize and awaken to your authentic nature. And so in relationship, before you break up, ask yourself, have I learned the lessons I needed to learn? Have I learned those lessons? Because if you just leave, and I'm not saying if you're in an abusive situation, maybe part of the lesson is to leave. But if you just leave and you go to someone else, likely all lessons are repeated until learned, and you'll attract the similar dynamic, different name, different face, different person, different hairstyle, but you'll attract a similar dynamic in a different relationship over and over and over and over again, because ultimately you're in relationship with yourself projected out there. So ask yourself, what are the lessons that my soul is seeking to learn with this person? Complete those lessons, learn those lessons as you decide to move on. And if I think that in relationship, sometimes people think it's over, but it's not necessarily over. Because if two people, here's what I'll say, if two people are willing to understand the true purpose of relationship, which is about the evolution of your soul together. Soulmates is about a commitment to serving each other's soul's evolution. It's not like mind mates, body mates, it's soul mates. I commit to serving you. I commit to serving you. If you understand that, then you understand that shit's going to get triggered, and love will tend to bring up everything that is unlike itself to the surface in the form of your relationship in order to be healed, so that when stuff comes up to the surface, pain, reactivity, conditioning, fears, when stuff comes up, that doesn't mean it's bad. And a lot of times when stuff comes up, people are like, I'm out, bye. But when stuff comes up, if you understand the real purpose of relationship, which is evolution, then relationship can be a profound healing container and yoga for the both of you to work through stuff together. And so long as you both have that understanding, commitment, compassion to hold each other's, stuff gently, then you understand that when stuff comes up, it's not bad. It's an opportunity for healing. This is the yoga. This is the classroom. Then if you both have the commitment to say, okay, I commit to serving your soul. Yeah, I commit to serving your soul. So long as you both commit to serving each other's souls, even when some challenging stuff is there, you have a relationship and you can continue. But when someone is like, I'm no longer committed to serving your soul, even if you stay together, you don't have a relationship. It's a dead relationship at that point. You're not in a relationship even if you're together. And so I think that is a key component. Like if one person is no longer committed to serving each other's soul's evolution, or if you feel that you've just grown in such a radically different direction that you no longer feel you're growing and evolving, or the lessons for why you've come together are now complete, that might be a sign that your relationship is over.
I've never heard anybody, and I have a lot of relationship experts and, book authors on my podcast. I never heard anybody say that a relationship is serving each other's souls. I think that's so beautiful. It's so interesting. And it's so true, because you learn how to grow with that other person. And what you were talking about, people, you're attracting everybody, and it's a mirror. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about people in my life, and I was like, why did I attract that person? Why did I attract that person? And everything kind of starts making sense.
Yes.
And oftentimes people stay in relationships that are pretty bad. And then at some point they decide to break up. But it happens that that somebody is really bad for you. You know that a relationship is never going to work, but you still have a hard time letting go.
Yeah, this is a good
Even
one.
the relationship might be over. You're done. But you're still thinking about them. They were horrible. They were mentally abusive. They were treating you like shit.
Yes.
Why? Why are we still so connected?
It's so hard, and relationships are so beautiful and they're so delicate, and we're so delicate as human beings. And I just want to say, like, anyone that has the courage to be in a relationship and love and give and be vulnerable and try, you're freaking heroes. We're heroes because it's not easy to love and be open and risk in that way. It's easier to be on the sidelines. And so, look, here's what I'll say. Every single thing that happens to us as children gets stored in our nervous system. The sights, the sounds, the smells, what mom says to dad, how mom and dad are interacting, the energy in the home, the heightened intensity, the dysfunction, beliefs about every single thing that happens gets stored in a nervous system. The nervous system is the antenna to the world. And so maybe dad wasn't around. Maybe he was absent. Maybe he wasn't available. Maybe he was gone. Maybe mom was crazy. Maybe dad was cheating. Maybe dad was mom or dad. Maybe they were abusive. So they were screaming, beating, verbally abusive in some way. So as children, what happens is we start getting conditioned. Oh, dad is mean. Love is abusive because dad's always screaming at me. So the patterning that starts happening from a very young age in our physiology, in our nervous system becomes love and abuse, love and pain, love and dysfunction and toxicity gets fused together. Dad is always gone. So we have this experience that gets wired in our nervous system of love, I love my dad, is not available. Love is not available. So there's always this feeling of reaching for love that's never really there, never really available because we love dad. So love and unavailability, as an example, getting wired into our nervous system. Nervous system is the antenna to the world. Information comes in, gets filtered through the current state of our nervous system. So the degree to which we're conditioned, i.e. carrying unresolved pain, hurt, resentment, anger, emotions, dysfunction, trauma, the degree to which we're carrying that in our body and our nervous system is the degree to which we won't be able to see clearly, perceive clearly, and the degree to which we will project through the lens of the conditioned filter of our nervous system onto the world. We're walking around, most of us, we're walking around with kind of like a certain color glasses based on our nervous system, thinking that everything is blue, but it's not. We're seeing through the lens of our conditioning. So what will happen often in relationships, we'll meet someone, we'll go to a party, we'll meet someone, like, oh, I think she's cute. Oh, I think he's cute. And you tell your friend, I feel like I know them. We've all been there. I feel like I know her. And then he comes over. It's like, oh, hi. I feel like I know you. I feel like I know you too. I feel like I've known you all my life. I feel like you're my soulmate. I feel so close to you. We're in love. Yes. The thing is this, and we've all had that, I feel like we just fit together. We're meant to. The thing is this, we think it's chemistry, but I call it shittistry. It's like my shit fits with your shit and we kind of perfectly fit together. And yes, it does feel familiar, but the energetic patterning in your nervous system just somehow unconsciously fits the energetic pattern in that other person's nervous system because they're your dad. There's a familiarity in the energetic. They're not your dad, but energetically, their conditioning is really the same or very similar, and it feels at home, and it feels familiar. And we're so attracted to it. And that's what pulls us together. Even though all of your friends say, don't go there. And even though something inside of you or me might say, don't go there. But we can't help ourselves. We know we shouldn't. But the energetic impulse and pull and magnetism pulls us together in such a way because it's our conditioning that fits perfectly together, that draws us together. And now you say to your friends, no, he's different. Until 2 months or 3 months into the relationship, you're like, shit, all of the kind of pain that feels familiar from childhood, you start feeling again because there is often an unconscious impulse inside of us that is seeking to heal. So now we draw this relationship in. And part of why it's hard to leave is because it feels so familiar. It feels so ingrained. The relationship, the energetic, the frequency, the dynamic, we start feeling like how we felt then. and we're not thinking straight anymore. We've transported ourselves back to that moment. We're transferring that onto this person. We're no longer in relationship with our husband, our wife, our girlfriend. We're in relationship with our mom. We're in relationship with our dad. And that it's not a logical thing. We know we need to leave. We know, like, this is freaking abusive. This is not right. But love is abuse. And I love my dad. And I love him. And so that's why I say information by itself is not enough. We have to really do the inner emotional, mental, emotional, energetic, somatic healing to be able to, like, unravel these layers of conditioning that keep us hooked into these relationships and dynamics. Otherwise, it will be hard to leave even a situation that we know we need to leave. We try to leave, we mentalize it, but just our nervous system, our body doesn't let us leave. And that's why it's so hard. You know, it's so hard.
I've also learned that basically when you break up with someone, there's these chemicals in your brain that you literally experience withdrawals, like you're coming off a drug. And that's why whenever you're on there, let's say you go through your photos, you look at old pictures, or you go to their Instagram and you're going through their something, you feel like you're still in it, and you feel like you're getting your dose, and you feel like you're still kind of in control because you're in it. But what did you say? Shittistry?
Shittistry.
Love it.
When you fall in love, right, here's what happens. I tell people, when you meet someone, if anyone's listening, this will save you 2 years of hell. This will save you 2 years of hell in the relationship, 2 years of hell getting over the relationship. I'm going to save you 4 years right now. When you meet someone and you feel that overwhelming, like, boom, like, bam, like, you know that rush of energy, that adrenaline, like
chemistry,
shittistry, really. Just
shittistry.
Right. Breathe. That's the moment to, like, just slow. I tell people, slow down. That's the moment to slow down, slow everything down, because that moment we've gone unconscious, we've transported back. We're in transference. We're not really present. We're not even necessarily seeing who's in front of us, and we don't even know that. I say, slow down, breathe, come into your body, come into the present moment, and take it slow. Take it slow. Because often, if you think back, how many of those relationships where you felt the explosion in the beginning, and how many of those people are you in relationship with right now? Probably none of them. Hopefully none of them, you know. And often, many times, the right person won't necessarily fit your type, because your type, or what you think of as your type, is really your conditioning. And so slow down, because when you can slow down, then you can actually connect to the moment, not when you were 5. Connect to the moment, breathe, and you can start to see clearly. Because often when we trigger and we fall in love, scientific studies have been done that say when a person falls in love, their brain waves and the chemicals in the brain, when they measured someone on cocaine and in love, are exactly the same. I call it cocaine brain. You are having the same, chemicals flooding through the brain. So we're not really thinking clearly in that moment. That's why I say, slow down. Take it slow. There's no rush. And what I found, when you take it slow and you're not stuck in the past, transferring, projecting, you take it slow, that will give you the opportunity often to see who the other person really is. And often who the other person really is will begin to reveal itself slowly in the process of just getting to know each other slowly.
Love that. You said so many. I feel like I'm going to be re-listening to this episode a few times because I'm just in awe of what you're saying. And you wrote 2 books. Your first book is You Are the One, and the second one is The Magic of Surrender. What does surrender mean to you?
Wow. It's kind of like my favorite word, I think what I will say is I think in our culture today, we have so many misconceptions on surrender. This idea that surrender is weak, surrender is passive, surrender is giving up, surrender is being a victim, is waving the white flag. That if you surrender, you're going to be left behind, taken advantage of. That if you surrender, you won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. That you're going to get less than. And I'm actually saying, no, if you really understand the real essence of what surrender is, like true, authentic surrender, like what if you didn't get less in life, but you got more? Maybe not what you expected, but more than you could have imagined with your logic, with your conscious personality, ego's, capacity to imagine life. What if it was better and more? Because if we all look at the best things in our lives that have happened, the best things, most of it we didn't plan. Most of it happened, in the process of just living life. And it's like, wow, I didn't plan to go meet that person in the coffee shop, but bumped into them in the yoga class, but bumped into them, in the airport. And so surrender really is a letting go of control, or I should say the illusion that we are in control in the first place. Surrender is when we stop trying to force and manipulate life to fit our limited idea of how we think it should be, how we think a relationship should be, who we think we should be, where we think things should be. It's when we take the limitations off of life and we're open, we're available, we're curious, we're receptive. We allow life to lead us and show us. And I believe it is the most powerful thing that we can do. It's the real secret to manifestation. It is the password to freedom. If you look at the truly great ones, people that I am inspired by, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mandela, Mother Teresa, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, people that weren't weak at all. At some point, they all reached a point in their lives where they had to surrender themselves. And in that surrender to the divine, to the universe, to their soul, to life, to their purpose, to, like, you surrendered to your deeper purpose, and here you are, inspiring so many amazing people. Like when you truly surrender to that which is bigger than you, that's when you transcend your own limited ego's capacity, your human capacity. And that's, I think, when life begins to manifest through you and use you. And so for me, that's what surrender is. The old paradigm and the old way of living life was know what you want, get clear on what you want, make it happen, force it, just go for it, which is great. It has a place, but it's limiting. In that, sometimes you might get everything that you thought you wanted, only to realize that what you thought you wanted was just what you thought you wanted, based on who you thought you were. And many times our goals can be projections of
conditioning, kind of
projections of our conditioning, of unmet needs. I wasn't, loved growing up, and I wasn't accepted. So if I can just, be famous, if I can just be an actor, if I can just do that thing, then I'm going to finally be enough. And nothing outside of you makes you feel enough unless you feel that inside. And so for me, the question I would invite people to sit with as we reflect on surrender is not what do I want? That's great. Have a sense of what you want. But the question is, what is it that life is seeking to express through me? Feel like, what is the universe seeking to express? What is God seeking to express? What is my soul seeking to express through me? And what is the deepest truth, the deepest impulse of what I am called to express right now? And feel what that is. And allow that to guide you. And then you can align your mind and your goals and your planning and your strategy and money and marketing with that. But now you're truly in the flow. And then you give 100%. One thing I just want to clarify is surrender doesn't mean being passive and sitting around and doing nothing. When you catch the true, authentic vision for your life, you go 100%. But the key is you go 100% without attachment to the outcome. Then you're available. Then you're open to allowing life to show you.
I have one last question, because if I start with all my questions, I'll keep you here for hours. How can people attract more abundance in their life and get rid of that feeling that they're not worthy of certain things?
Man, I like your questions. They're really great questions. Really great questions. Okay, I want to approach it from a few different angles. Attracting more abundance, I'm not worthy. First, I want to just say, there's nothing you do that will make you worthy, and nothing you don't do will make you unworthy. All of life If you look around, don't take my word for it. Just look around. All of life is loving you unconditionally every moment. The sun shines, not because, oh, Coco did something good today. The sun's going to shine on her. Kute did something good today. Okay, we'll give him a bit of the moon. It will give him some air. Life is loving us. Life is showing us the unconditionality of our own worth and value. Every moment, we are being loved by life, every breath, every moment. And so I just invite people to connect to that, to feel that, like, life is unconditional in its loving and acknowledging of our true value. So nothing makes you more or less valuable, because what you are truly, when you know who you are, what you are is whole, perfect, and complete. What you are is a soul. What you are is not what has happened to you, not experiences, not accolades. What you are is you just are, and just your isness is pure value, and I think that is something we have to just sit with and connect with. In terms of abundance, talked about abundance. To me, abundance is not about what you have or what you don't have, because you can have a lot of stuff and still be in lack and scarcity. You can be a and I've worked with many billionaires, and they're terrified. They don't feel good about themselves. They're still living in fear. I don't have enough money, and so. Abundance is not about what you have or what you don't have. Abundance is about how you feel about yourself and about how you feel about what you have. And the real source of abundance is really about being connected to the true source of abundance, which is your soul, which is life. When you're truly connected to who you are, your soul, the essence of your life, that you are an infinite being, not just this ego little mind-body mechanism which is separate from existence. But when you are truly connected to, like, I'm a soul. I'm not just this body that's going to give birth and then dies. I'm an infinite stream of energy. That is the source of true abundance that comes through one's inner connection, one's opening, one's awakening, one's spiritual practice. And I think when we really connect to our soul, we start connecting to a source of abundance that is not dependent on what we do, what we achieve, what we don't achieve. We start connecting to the true source of abundance, the true source of worth, the true source of value. So that frees us up when we're no longer seeking that from the external world. Then our value is not, and our worth is not dependent on anything outside. Then we're free, because in that freedom we realize, wow, I'm freaking infinite. Like, what I am is an infinite being. That to me is the spiritual foundation of abundance, acknowledging who and what you are. And I think when we connect to that frees us. Then I think on a practical level, what we can begin doing is start acknowledging what you do have. If you're looking around practically in the world, like, but my bank account doesn't reflect that I'm an infinite being. My bank account doesn't reflect my infinity. It's okay. To me, all of life is a reflection, and life is reflecting to us what we believe about ourselves, showing us opportunities to shift and heal. And so start to acknowledge the abundance that you do have. Look around. Don't just look at what I don't have. Yeah, the gratitude. What do I have? Wow, I have my health. Small. Acknowledge that. Just start acknowledging the feeling, the energy, the friendships, the intangible. Start acknowledging and cultivating that as a feeling within yourself. Don't wait till you have $1 bazillion or the Ferrari or the big house or the big podcast. What have? Forget all of that. Connect to the feeling of that right now. What do I have? And allow that to amplify and feel the gratitude. And even if you're like, but I want some money, fine. Because here's the thing. We think money will bring us that feeling of peace. It won't. Ask yourself this. By having $1 billion, what is it that I'm seeking? How is it that I think what is the feeling that I'm going for by having $1 billion? I would feel XYZ. What is the feeling I would have by having that beautiful, car? Great. Acknowledge that. And start finding a way to cultivate that feeling, the feeling within yourself right now, not as something separate from you or waiting for an experience to show up to gift that to you. You start cultivating that feeling of, I would feel joy. Start cultivating that joy inside of yourself now. That's abundance, where you're not depending on anything. Start cultivating that inner sense of joy, blissfulness, freedom, happiness, lightness. Cultivate that now, live that now. Then I think you're truly free. And lastly, I would say, if you really want to be abundant, don't wait till you have. You must have it before you have it. And so in order to have it before you have it, you have to have it. And so start giving away and affirming your abundance by giving away more of what you want. What I want more love. Start finding ways to give it away by being a small contribution. It might be giving $1 to someone, making someone food, taking someone coffee. Start finding ways to open your heart and give, because that starts affirming your trust in the universe. That starts affirming that you are abundant. Even with the small that you have, you're being in abundance with that. And as you open your heart to give, here's what happens. You open your heart to love someone. You open your heart to check in on someone. People think, well, I don't have anything to give. You have a smile. Open your heart and you smile. Whenever you open your heart to give, you open your heart. You open your heart to receiving at the same time. You can't give and not be open. You have to open to give. So when you open to give, you open, and that allows you to receive. That opens your receptivity as well. And so don't wait till you have it. Start giving away what you want. That also starts to activate abundance in life.
I love to compliment whenever I'm buying something and like talking to the cashier and just tell them, I love your hair. I love this. I love that. And the smile on their face, because they're just doing, their jobs that is like very automatic. And when somebody really shows them that you see them, you pay attention, it goes such a long way. Okay, Kute, this conversation was so incredible, inspirational. Would you be okay giving one of your books to our listeners?
Can I do one better?
Yes.
We'll give 5.
Okay, love that. Okay, amazing.
Five books, signed copies to your people.
Oh, shit. Okay. Okay, so...
abundance, right? We're talking abundance.
I love that. Okay, so all you guys need to do is obviously follow Kute on Instagram and then head over to my Boujee Best Friend page, where you're going to see a video of this conversation, and drop a comment and tell me what was your favorite part of this amazing conversation. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Please share, where can everybody find you? Where can they buy your books? And also, is there anything you are doing? I think you have those retreats in Bali, right?
Yeah. So first thing, everyone just grab the book, because I think it's like $15, but it's such a simple manual to guide you through the process of surrendering. But yes, twice a year, if people are inspired by the conversation, I think that the most, accelerated, evolutionary, transformational thing I do is I do a 12-day event in Bali. It's life-changing. I've done it for 12 years. We have everyone from billionaires, celebrities, entrepreneurs, black, white, green, orange, men, women, you name it. They've come to this event. I've done it for 10 years. And it's one of the most unique experiences on the planet, truly. I'm humbled to facilitate it. I've done 20 of these events in the last 10 years. This is my last year doing this event. So I'm doing 2 this year. The next one is July the 28th through August the 8th. It's called Boundless Bliss, the Bali Breakthrough Experience. And people can go to www.boundlessblissbali.com. They can find out more info there and apply. My main website is Kute Blackson. Instagram, Kute Blackson, Facebook, Kute Love Now. And say hi.
Amazing. Well, thank you everybody for listening. And thank you, Kute, again for being here.
Thank you.
I'll see everybody next week. Bye-bye.